Its vaulted ceiling carried the flags of 100 species, each one a symbol of a doctrine that had survived long enough to be called truth. The seats were arranged in arcs of authority, and the air itself was tuned to calm. Every sound was softened. Every argument was guided into procedure. Only the humans refused the calming field. They sat in the lower ring, as required by protocol, but their posture did not match the architecture. They leaned forward like people who had been awake for too long, with the kind of focus that made other species uneasy. Their uniforms were plain, their insignia small, their eyes sharp, on the upper dais. Admiral Varric of the Thal Dominion watched them with open amusement. He was tall, plated in ceremonial alloy, his mandibles polished and edged in gold. His people had ruled the outer lanes for 3 centuries, and they carried the habit of victory the way a blade carried a reflection. A voice request chimed. Varric rose. "Council members," said, and the translators made his tone pleasant. "We are gathered to decide the final containment of the Sol system." He paused, letting the words settle. "The human delegation has submitted a proposal. They claim they possess a new weapon capable of halting the Dominion fleet without needing allied reinforcements? A ripple of interest moved through the chamber. Varric turned slightly toward the humans. "Captain Eli," he said. "You may speak." The human representative stood. His name was Eli. Ward. Simple. Common. The kind of name that did not carry a dynasty behind it. He did not bow. He did not perform. He just looked up at the council and spoke like someone giving a report. "The Dominion fleet is massing beyond the Helios line," Eli said. "They will breach the inner lanes in 40 hours. The coalition cannot assemble a defense in time. We can." Varric's mandibles shifted in a gesture that the translator interpreted as laughter. "With what?" Varric asked. "Your chemical cannons? Your fragile missiles? Your obsolete kinetics?" The hall allowed itself a small sound of agreement. Humans were known for stubbornness, not for elegance. Their ships were thick and blunt. Their tactics were direct. Their victories, when they happened, were expensive. Eli did not react. "We do not intend to meet your fleet in a fair exchange," he said. "We intend to stop it with a single strike." Varric leaned forward. "And what strike is that?" he asked. Eli glanced down at his slate, then back up. "A rail system," he said. The laughter in the chamber was not restrained this time. Even the neutral species made small sounds of disbelief. Railguns were an old concept. Primitive, some called them. Linear accelerators that flung metal at high speed. In a universe of particle beams and gravitic shears, a railgun was what a desperate species built before it learned better. Varric's amusement grew. "Humans don't have railguns." He chortled. "Not ones that matter. Not ones that can touch a Dominion dreadnought." Eli's eyes stayed steady. "We do," he said VAR. X spread his arms. "Then show us," he said. "Because in 40 hours, your world becomes a lesson." The council speaker, an elderly neutral called Mira, lifted a hand for silence. "Captain Eli," Mira said, "the council requires proof. A demonstration. If you cannot provide it, the coalition will not divert resources to your plan." Eli nodded once. "You will have proof," he said. "In 12 hours, Varric's mandibles clicked. 12 hours, he repeated. A convenient time to invent a miracle. Eli did not argue. He sat down, and the human delegation left the chamber without another word. In the corridors beyond the council hall, the air was colder and the lights harsher. The humans walked fast. Their boots sounded like intent. A younger officer, Tom Reyes, caught up beside Eli. "They're not going to believe it until it happens," Tom said. Eli's jaw tightened. "They don't have to believe," he said. "They just have to be out of the way." Tom hesitated. "The Dominion is bringing 6 dreadnoughts," he said, "and the carrier wall behind them." Eli nodded. "I know," he said. Tom lowered his voice. "Will it work?" he asked. Eli stopped walking for a moment. His expression did not soften, but it did become honest. "It has to," he said. The humans returned to their ship. A compact command vessel docked in the shadow of the council station. It was called the Ardennes, not for poetry, but for an old battlefield name that had survived into the stars. Inside, the mood was not heroic, it was practical. Screens showed orbital mechanics, fleet trajectories, energy budgets, thermal limits. Engineers moved between stations with the tight movements of people who had been living inside equations in the center of the operations bay. A holographic map of the Sol system rotated slowly. Mars glowed as a red point beyond it. An object labeled simply as Platform 9 sat in a long, patient orbit. Tom stared at the label. "It still feels wrong," he said. Eli stepped beside him. "It should," he said. Tom's eyes tracked the orbit line. "They think it's a shipyard." Tom said, "They think a lot of things." Eli replied. A technician called Hannah looked up from her station. "Captain," she said, "we have confirmation. Dominion scouts crossed the Helios line. They're still holding position, but they're probing the outer coms." Eli exhaled. "Let them probe," he said. "They'll see what we want them to see." Tom glanced at him. "What do we want them to see?" he asked. Eli looked at the hologram. "A lie," he said. "Platform 9 was not a shipyard. It had never been a shipyard. It was a spine of metal and ceramic, anchored to nothing but orbital velocity and stubborn engineering. It was kilometers long, segmented like a creature built from rails. It had no thrusters, no armor, no guns mounted on turrets, because it was the gun. Humans had built it in secret, not because they were clever, but because they were afraid. When the Dominion first began pushing into coalition space, most species responded with diplomacy, then with weapons they already understood. Humans responded by building something they could not afford to use unless everything else failed. Weapons so simple, it embarrassed the modern. MIND, a rail. A line. A straight path for mass to become. Speed that the engineers called it a kinetic accelerator array. The soldiers called it a railgun, and the council would call it impossible in the operations bay. Hannah's voice cut through. "Platform 9 is online," she said. "Cooling systems stable? Power reservoirs at 90%. Tom frowned. 90%, he said. "We need full—" Hannah's hands moved over controls. "We can push it," she said. "But the thermal load will crack the inner rails." Eli's gaze did not leave the hologram. "Then we crack them," he said. Tom stared. "We only get one shot." Tom said. Eli finally looked at him. "We only need one," he said. The plan was not to hit the Dominion fleet with a projectile. That would have been too obvious to expected Dominion. Ships were built to survive impacts. They had layered deflectors, inertial buffers, and armor designed to absorb kinetic force. If a human slug struck a dreadnought, it might punch a hole. It would not wipe out half a fleet. So the humans did not aim for the ships, they aimed for the space around them. They aimed for the physics at the edge of the Sol system, beyond the quiet lanes where commerce used to flow. The Dominion fleet waited like a wall. 6 dreadnoughts at the front, each one a moving city of weapons and command decks. Behind them, carriers and escorts arranged in patterns that had won wars for centuries. "Admiral." Varric stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Crown of Ash. He watched the sensor displays with calm confidence. "Human communications," said an officer replied. "Minimal, Admiral. They are silent." Varric's mandibles shifted. "They are afraid," he said. Another officer hesitated. "Admiral," the officer said, "Coalition Station reports the humans promised a demonstration." Varric made the same amused sound. "Demonstrate," he said. "With what?" "Their myths." He stepped closer to the forward viewport. Sol's distant star was a pale point, a small light in a sea of black. Varric had conquered. Brighter suns. He had broken species that once claimed they would never kneel. Humans were not special. They were simply the next. 12 hours, Varric said softly. Then we move. Dominion fleet held position, and the humans prepared. Deep in its spine, energy reservoirs filled like lungs. Gigantic capacitors. Built from materials that were never meant to exist in such shapes, charged slowly. Each one stored enough power to light a city for a day. The array did not hum. It did not glow. It waited in the Ardennes. Eli watched the countdown. Tom stood behind him, arms folded. "Tell me again," Tom said. "Why we aren't aiming at the dreadnoughts?" Eli did not look away. "Because they expect that," he said. "And because armor is a conversation we lose." Tom's voice lowered. "So, we're going to scare them," he said. Eli's expression tightened. "We're going to erase their formation," he said. Tom swallowed. Hannah's hands paused over the controls. "Captain," she said, "if we fire at the planned coordinates, the shock will propagate through the fleet's front line. But it's unpredictable. The density of their ships, the angle of their shields, the field interactions." Eli nodded. "I know," he said. Hannah's eyes flicked toward him. "It could do less than we want," she said. Eli's voice was flat. "Or more," he said. Silence. Settled in the bay, not fear, not doubt, just the heavy understanding that humans were about to pull a lever that could not be unpulled. The council stations. Observation deck filled with diplomats and military analysts. Even those who had laughed at the humans now wanted to see the spectacle. Myra stood at the center, her thin hands clasped. "Human captain," she said through the channel, "you may begin your demonstration." Eli's voice came back calm. "Understood," he said. Varric, watching from his flagship L.